All right, welcome to NCSA Live. My name is Kyle Winters, recruiting manager here with NCSA, and I'm really happy to be here with you guys for another Tuesday afternoon. I am joined yet again by Phil Wells. Phil, this is the second NCSA Live in a row we've done, and we did two other roles within NCSA back-to-back nights on Sunday and Monday. Are you tired of me yet?
I can't get enough of you at all. I hope you're not tired of me, and I'm certainly happy to be here speaking to the people again and enlighten them with the best Bud Kyle there. Couldn't complain on my end.
I could not possibly get tired of you. You just lift me up. You make me better in all ways, shapes, and forms, Phil. So we have a great topic for you guys today. If you guys have any questions, we're coming to you live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Make sure to throw them in the comments, and we'll answer them at the end of the show. But the topic for today, as I mentioned, it's a great one. I think it's something that probably every family is looking for and thinking about in recruiting, and it's how to get ahead in the recruiting process, which is easier said than done. So we're going to talk about being proactive, how to contact college coaches, start your college recruiting process on the right foot, understand how college coaches recruit, and really kind of at the end of it, check things off your spring recruiting checklist. But Phil, let's get it started there. Contact college coaches. When I was going through high school, didn't even know that we were supposed to contact college coaches. That was totally foreign to me. Why don't you get us started talking about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think this is something that's very much undervalued. We always get those questions, Kyle, of, hey, how do I know a college coach is, looking at me? How do I know if a college coach knows who I am? How do I know if a college coach is looking for athletes like me? The simple answer is reach out. When it comes to being proactive, getting started in a recruiting process, something that's undervalued is the ways in which a student athlete has access to contact a college coach. Now, again, it's very proactive, and it's what you should be doing. When it comes to reaching out to these coaches, they're willing. That's what they want to see. And typically, there's multiple ways to do so. Emails, text messages, and phone calls in some cases. Social media platforms. These are all acceptable ways for athletes, recruits, to reach out to coaches directly and make sure they know about them. Make sure they actually can look at a recruit like that student athlete. And a correlation to that is all public information. College coaches usually have their emails out there so they can actually be driven into the hands of a student athlete. College coaches, they typically sometimes post their phone numbers on their NCSA accounts or on their websites so athletes can have access to that information and reach out. And guess what? If I'm a college coach, I would much more likely involve myself in engagement with the student athlete who's proactive and reaching out to me versus the athlete that I've had no correspondence with and has shown no interest in my individual program. So with that, it's always important to start reaching out, being proactive, and guess what? That's what college coaches want to see.
Yeah, I would say it's not an understatement to say the best way to get ahead in college recruiting process and ensure a coach knows about you is to contact the coach yourself. You can't get recruited if a college coach doesn't know who you are. On top of that, you want them to have the right information about you as well. So just sending them an email, probably not good enough. Send them your recruiting profile, your NCSA recruiting profile. It's your resume for college coaches. It's your one-stop shop to show a college coach everything they want to know about you, any reasons they would want to recruit you. Include that link in your email. Send them your profile. And that's the best way to start getting on coaches' radars because there are hundreds of thousands of student athletes and they're competing in each sport at the high school level. And these days, for the most part, coaches, they aren't just going to stumble upon you. You have to be the one who initiates that contact. From there, great way to start your college recruiting process on the right foot is, understanding it, knowing what effort that you have to put into it. So, Phil, you can probably elaborate a little bit more about just starting your college recruiting process on the right foot in the first place.
Absolutely. And this is something where all recruits, they want to have an idea of where to start. Okay. And typically, it's always best to start the recruiting process as early as you can, but it's very, very important to be informed. Typically, college coaches, yes, they very much start targeting freshmen. Okay, they very much start getting ahead of those elite prospects at a very early age. If you're a freshman and you have varsity film. You have high club elite highlight video. You're a freshman that has prestigious awards such as All-State. You're a freshman who has been recognized to a high degree. You absolutely need to start being proactive in the recruiting process and reaching out to those coaches, because guess what? As a freshman performing at a very high elite level, coaches are looking to target you right now. Now, with that being said, what about the freshman that maybe hasn't hit his or her stride yet? Maybe you're a freshman that won't hit that stride and that stride of performance into sophomore year. That's okay. What that means is sophomore year is your time to really be proactive at that point. Now, that doesn't mean as a freshman, just because you're maybe not playing on your varsity team, that doesn't mean that you don't start recruiting. There's still, as a freshman in that situation, tons of things you can do to really start getting yourself involved in the recruiting process, still starting on the right foot. And maybe that involves yourself getting to know what college coaches do. Maybe that's getting familiar with the college recruiting timeline as it pertains to college coaches. That's surely, as a freshman, getting a bit of a target list and educating yourself on how college recruiting works. So when it is your time to start, regardless of when you hit your stride, you're ready and you know exactly what you need to do.
For sure. And probably there are a lot of families out there who have that thought process that as a freshman, my student athlete, they're underdeveloped. They're going to be a late bloomer. I know I grew 9 inches in high school myself. And it's just, I hope it helps to know that college coaches, they're not looking for a finished product as a freshman in high school. They understand that a student athlete is not going to be fully developed as a 13, 14-year-old in high school. They also understand that as a 17 or 18-year-old, that student athlete's not going to be fully developed either. Freshmen in college, when they're at their program, sophomore in college, they understand that student athlete is not finished developing. They're not looking for a finished product. They're looking to see projectability. They want to see the student athlete has the tools at a young age. They know that they're going to grow into themselves. They're going to get bigger and stronger. They're going to get better. So, of course, every student athlete out there is trying to get better. They're trying to develop their skills. But from the college coach's perspective, they're not necessarily looking for that finished product. So for you guys who are freshmen, who are 8th graders out there worried about sending information out to a coach and maybe that coach writing you off because you're not fully developed, hopefully you can take a little bit of comfort in the fact that that's not typically the process for coaches. They're not necessarily writing people off right away. They're identifying student athletes at a young age to keep track of their progress and see how they grow and develop and get better over the course of high school, because that's going to showcase how a student athlete is going to get better while they're in college as well. So it's a huge aspect of it, a good segue into just understanding how college coaches recruit in the first place. I know that I had a notion about this when I was in high school, that if you're good enough, you're smart enough, you play at the right place, coaches are just going to happen to see you. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people think that same way, Phil, and I know that that's really just not the case these days. So take us through how college coaches recruit these days.
Absolutely. And it's super, super important for every athlete to have an understanding of this, because when you have a goal to play a sport in college, whatever your given sport is, regardless of the situation, you want to mold yourself into the athlete that a certain college coach is looking for, that a certain college coach finds as a good fit. And best believe, if you can have some kind of idea of the progression of that college coach's recruiting timeline, you're going to be that much closer to success. So let's start from the very top of what college coaches do in their progression. Number one, it's about gathering a list of prospective student athletes. College coaches have to start from somewhere. Okay, a lot of times this list of prospective student athletes is built upon how proactive underclassmen can be. Guess what? That underclassman that's proactive, sending out the emails, maybe filling out some questionnaires. Those are the kinds of athletes who go onto that prospective target list for college coaches. So again, college coaches want to start off by just building a rough list of athletes across the country or across a certain target region where they can potentially engage with athletes a little bit further down the line. So it all starts with just a huge list of athletes that might potentially be a good fit for that program. Moving on, as far as college coaches, as they start really diving into that list, finding out who may be a good fit, who might not be a good fit, their next step is to engage right away. Now, as you get later in the timeline, the engagement picks up. But that first letter of a point of engagement for college coaches as they're going through their lists is actually to start sending out some letters, sending out some questionnaires. If you're an underclassman, a lot of this may be, generic. A lot of it may be just from the school. But best believe that's that college coach reaching out with generic information, general information, to start engaging athletes on that potential list. From that point, depending on the engagement back and forth from the student athlete that receives that mail, that receives that questionnaire. Now for the college coach, it's time to conduct the evaluation. I've already gathered a list as a college coach of athletes I may be interested in. I've shot out some emails. I shot out some letters. I've shot out some questionnaires. Now I want to conduct some evaluations, whether that be in person, maybe at a camp, maybe at an invite, maybe that's online from just directly evaluating film. Maybe that's a phone conversation when I want to conduct the evaluation that way. College coaches at the third point very much want to conduct evaluations to take that level of engagement to the next level to see how much of a good potential fit you may be for that program. And as that progression continues for a college coach, after we really dive into evaluations, now college coaches have a little bit more of an idea of, hey, who is going to be a good fit and who may not be a good fit for whatever reason. But at that particular time, now college coaches are sending out the letters as far as scholarship offers. Now college coaches are extending verbal offers and verbal assessments to make sure that family, that student athlete knows that, hey, I'm a college coach. I like who you are. I think you're a good fit for my program. So here's that offer extension. Now, again, let's remind that scholarship offers, verbal offers, none are set in stone until you sign that letter of intent. So just because you receive an offer doesn't mean you're technically going to that program 100%. But typically, that fourth point in the progression of a college coach is to extend some kind of verbal offer, extend some kind of heightened evaluation and engagement to let that student athlete know, hey, I like what we see. I think you're a good fit. But moving on from there, typically in an athlete's senior year, if the feeling is mutual, if there's a good fit across the board for the family, for the student athlete, as well as for that college coach and that athletic program, as well as academic program, then it's time to sign. Now is when college coaches at the very last point start sending out national letters of intent for athletes to sign that contract per se to the school, meaning, yes, you are coming to this program. That's typically what we see as a normal progression for a college coach. A lot of ways it can vary a little bit depending on, maybe a pandemic or depending on the level of engagement for certain athletes. That is typically our normal progression, and every athlete needs to know it.
For sure, yeah, and it can be a little bit simplistic for us to really break down understanding how college coaches recruit into 5 steps of gather a list of prospective athletes, send out recruiting letters, questionnaires, camp invites, conduct evaluations, extend verbal offers and scholarships, and sign athletes. That sounds very tight, very quick. It sounds like a pretty simplistic process, but we have to kind of keep in mind that each one of those steps has multi-layers in them for college coaches. And so college coaches, they're very much mirroring what we talk about for student athletes and families, what they should be doing throughout the recruiting process. The very beginning, they'll take a recruiting class. They'll take 2024s. They'll build up a list of several hundred athletes. They're going to gather that list of prospective athletes. They're going to send out questionnaires, letters, camp invites to gauge the interest from those student athletes. And they're going to narrow that down over the next few years. Very much mirroring that, like I said, on the student athlete side, freshmen in high school, start building a list of a couple hundred schools sometimes. It doesn't have to be 100, maybe it's 50, but start with a list, and you're going to do the same. You're going to narrow it down over the next few years to figure out the right fit for you. And a lot of that is trial and error on both the student athlete and on the college coach side. So just keep that in mind. That's why we talk about starting so early, is knowing that it's not going to be clean. It's not going to be easy. It's email a coach. They like you. They offer you a scholarship. You sign. It's almost never that process. So that's why we talk about using the whole 4 years to go through the recruiting. The last piece that we want to talk about today is something that Phil and I actually talked about. I believe it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that's checking things off your spring recruiting checklist. And you can find this on our website. We'll post it in the video as well, so you can see it and go access it. But Phil, take us through kind of what the steps in the recruiting checklist for the spring should be here at this point.
Absolutely. So I'll definitely take note that the athletic checklist is a list, very much garnered towards every grad level to make sure athletes know what they need to do before branching into the summer. We're in a time right now where we're getting ready to end the school year and we're getting ready to transition into the summer. And it can be easy to maybe put a halt to recruiting and maybe start focusing on our craft and our athletics, and maybe, focusing on our academics as we look ready or get ready for the next school year. But this is a time more than ever where we really want to dive into just our checklist as far as, what we want to do to get ready for the summer and make sure we're on track for recruiting. As a freshman, obviously it may not be as extensive as an upperclassman. Still a lot to do. During this time period right now for underclassmen, it is important that you have a game plan amongst schools that you may be interested in, and you want to start with some kind of engagement amongst looking towards this summer where you're out of school. You want to potentially get on some campuses. You want to get in person, obviously in a safe manner, but this is the time where you want to utilize that summer to knock out some of the things in recruiting, whether that be targeting the camp, making sure you can get out and get some coaches to see you in person, whether that be looking at different skills camps outside of recruiting to better your craft, more so for the underclassmen. And then as we climb up the ladder a little bit, getting into, sophomores who are getting ready to become juniors, getting into those seniors who are forthcoming up this fall, it's really important that you start having some of those conversations directly with college coaches. This is a time where you need to realistically communicate with coaches to see, hey, is there a mutual interest that I need to continue to pursue? Or do I need to start seeing my sights on other programs? This is a time as an upperclassman to be very realistic, because one thing you do want to avoid is going into this next school year come fall and not making any progression across the 3-4 month summer and being even further behind. So as we step into the fall and get ready for it, and in the school year this spring, a lot of different things that you guys want to do per grad level that you guys can certainly find on our website. But overall, it's extremely important that we just don't put a halt to recruiting.
For sure. So just to kind of recap, if you're trying to figure out how to get ahead in the recruiting process, whether you're an underclassman just getting started in the process, or if you're an athlete on the verge of making that college decision, student athletes, families, you guys are the ones responsible for managing your own recruiting process. It's great if you have a coach helping out. It's great if you have other people that are going to be aiding you in this process. But it's going to be up to you. You're going to be the one that needs to take the steps to make sure you're in a good position for success. The student athletes who put a ton of work into their recruiting process, they're the ones who typically have more success in the exact same way that the student athletes who put a ton of time into becoming a better student athlete end up becoming better student athletes. So it's really a combination of all the above. Work hard to become a better athlete, work hard to become a better recruit, have more visibility, connectivity with college coaches as well. So awesome. Hopefully that's information. Again, good information. Again, check out the spring recruiting checklist in the description for this. We'll dive into some questions. Hopefully you guys have some good ones. If you haven't posted one, feel free to go in there and add some questions, whether it's about this topic or anything having to do with the recruiting process in general. And Phil and I will be happy to answer them. So Joanne's starting us off. My daughter is a sophomore and interested in schools that are far away. Little to no chance of in-person viewing by a college coach. What are best options to catch their attention? So great. This is a great example, Joanne, of being proactive. Phil, talk her through how to be proactive, like we talked about in kind of our checklist today, how to start getting their name out.
Absolutely, Joanne. And I really appreciate this question because, again, a lot of athletes at this point may have their sights set on schools that are a little bit further away. And that's okay. But the best thing we want to start with is reaching out to those schools that are further away and making sure as a first step, they know who the athlete is. They know who your son or daughter is. They know exactly that who the athlete is and that they exist. Because again, to your point, you may not have college coaches traveling out to you from further away. Okay, so the very first point, you want to make sure they know you exist. And ways you can do that is very first and foremost, reaching out to the coaches at those programs that you may have your eyes set on. And then also, online presence is going to be everything when it comes to maybe a lower exposure area, or maybe just having your eyes set a little bit further away. College coaches, yeah, they probably can't get over to you. They probably can't come to the high school. You probably don't have access to get to one of their camps. But if that college coach can find you online and in a spot like your NCSA profile, if they can find video, if they can find your grades, they can find everything that makes you a really good athlete, location is relative. Location doesn't matter if they can still see everything they need to see.
For sure. For college coaches, they're understanding. They're trying to put together the best teams they possibly can. They don't necessarily care where the student athlete comes from. They may look for in-state athletes in some cases for help with tuition, some of those types of things. But my sister, for example, she played out of Colorado and went all the way to Indianapolis, having never been seen by the coach in person before. They recruited her off of VHS tape, which kids, your parents can tell you what that is. But we put together a VHS tape for her, and she got recruited essentially off of that. So have confidence that coaches are willing to recruit a student athlete based off good resume, off a good profile, off good skills video, good highlight tapes. Those are a great way to start getting your name out in front of those coaches. So great question, Joanne. Awesome. Taking our next question. Woohoo Productions, which it sounds like that's a company of some sort, but they asked, how effective are skills videos with coaches, which I just touched on. They're incredibly effective. Phil, touch on the skills videos aspect side of things.
Absolutely. When it comes to game footage, that's one thing, but skills video is very, very important. Just for number one, for a college coach to gauge things like technique, one-on-one dedication. Typically, if you're making a skills video, you're really committed, and also just the way you move. Period. Outside of the team atmosphere, super, super important, and it's usually very much best when paired with an actual game footage video. But even without, from what we've seen during this pandemic, skills video, even without regular game footage, can be extremely impactful because it still provides a way for a college coach to see some movement and to see who exactly you are, aside from what may be just on paper.
For sure, yeah, and Woohoo Productions, I'm not sure, I don't have your name, unfortunately, but just keep in mind, coaches know that student athletes haven't been playing. There have not been seasons for them to go out and get highlight videos. So they're very understanding about skills video right now. They know in some cases that's all they're going to get from a student athlete in sports like basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, where there maybe wasn't skills video or that's not something coaches looked for in the past. They're much more open to it right now, knowing that that may be the only video they get. So, be confident in that. Go check out our website or give us a call. We can talk you more through how to put together that skills video. Cool. I'm not going to try on this name, but what do you do if the coach wants to watch you play in person, but they are far away? So we kind of talked about this. It's a really difficult situation. You may have to communicate with that coach and let them know that you're not able to come out and play. You may not be able to go and travel to their area and go to a camp where they have it. Coaches can be very understanding of that as well. They understand that kids are in school, they have homework, they have tests, they have travel. Families have their own budgets. I personally wasn't able to go to a ton of events because we didn't have a ton of money growing up to go out and do that type of stuff. So coaches are understanding, but that's a conversation to have with them to see if you can problem solve and see if there's a chance they maybe will be out at an event that you're at. Maybe they're going to be in your area. Work that out with them. That's a conversation that you'll want to have with that coach to see what you can do to figure something out. At the end of the day, if their requirement is that you have to come to their camp or that they only will recruit you if you can go to that camp, maybe that's somewhere you kind of give a little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's going to be best for you and for your family. And maybe that's not the best fit. Just know in most sports, there are thousands of other schools out there, at least hundreds of other schools out there that offer your sport. Build interest with other schools as well, and don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Cool. Anna asked, my son has never reached reached out to any college coach. He's going to be a senior. Does he still have an opportunity? Great question, Hannah. Yeah, talk about the opportunity that seniors still have out there, Phil.
Absolutely, and absolutely still opportunities out there. Absolutely. Now, again, we have to recognize that, again, we are late to the game. Okay, we have to recognize that as a senior who hasn't reached out, you are behind. So what only thing that means is we can't, cast a super wide net, because not everybody will still be looking at seniors coming up here. So we want to have a very targeted approach in our efforts in which we reach out. Okay, we want to reach out to those programs that are, still looking at seniors in terms of roster spots. You can use NCSA's websites and give us a call to gauge what roster spots look like. In general, this is a time as a senior to be extremely open. Okay, it's very much time to reach out to programs, but if our eyes were set on Division I and that's it, we have to expand. If our eyes were set on Division III and maybe that's it, we have to expand. At this particular time, if we definitely want the best opportunity, we have to be open to all potential opportunities of programs still looking at seniors, and then we can narrow down the list as we start reaching out.
Yeah, great point. Junior college also a great option for a potential senior. For a potential senior who is maybe running out of opportunities, junior college is a great way to get into school, pay less for school, play your sport, and open up for your opportunities after that. Yeah, I think we have another one or two coming in here. We'll finish with those and we'll go on to our commits. But yeah, I think we should be fine with those. For a sophomore, should they take part in ID camps this summer, or would it be more advantageous to wait until next year? So for a sophomore, yeah, it's not a bad time to be going into ID camps. It's really not a bad time per se to go into ID camps at any point in the recruiting process, but just know that that's probably not going to be the main way that a college coach recruits you. We talk about it a little bit about being proactive. When we think about an ID camp, there might be 50 players there. There might be 100 players there. There might be 150. There might be 200 players at one single ID camp for one school. Okay. What are the odds that you're going to be that one student athlete that gets pulled out of that crowd? Can happen for sure, but you want to do your due diligence. You want to get out in front of that coach. You want to send your email. You want to send your video. You want to send your profile. You want to showcase why that coach should be watching you at that camp and following up with you afterward. You want to be the one who's initiating that, not just going out to an ID camp and hoping that you play well, that coach happens to see you, they see you at the right time, and everything just kind of lines up. So do your due diligence as a sophomore. ID camps are perfectly fine, but make sure that you are already out in front of that coach and not just going into it blind. I think we have one more question. We'll kind of tag team this one. Does it cost anything to have my son profile put up on the recruiting site for coaches to see? So Phil, I'll kind of let you start off this, and I'll kind of circle back around as well about just having the profile up on NCSA in the first place.
No, so it actually doesn't cost to have your NCSA profile up and into the network for college coaches to evaluate you, and for college coaches to see that, hey, you are an athlete out there looking to play at the next level, looking to take your game and your academics to the next level. Now, it does come with the evaluation where we want to actually, talk with you a bit. We want to go over your grades, and we want to go over where you're at athletically to make sure you're what college coaches are looking for at this current time, and to make sure you're set up for success. And furthermore, Kyle, you can touch on it a little bit. We do for those families that even want extra help is in reference to maybe seeing exact roster spots. Who's recruiting what grad classes? Who has roster spots available for what grad classes? We have premium options where families can invest and unlock some of those tools to help them out even further. Kyle, you can elaborate on that a little bit, but we have the best of both worlds just for families to get help and match up their best fit when it comes to playing in college.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an assessment process where a family will speak with one of our recruiting specialists, and what that specialist does is they talk to the family through the recruiting profile. They'll go over their needs, what they're looking for, kind of develop a game plan for the recruiting process, and talk about what steps they need to be taking to get recruited with or without NCSA's help. Like Phil said, we have additional tools. We have services that do have costs affiliated with them. On face value, it's hard for us to say whether or not those services would be a good fit for any specific family. That's something that we offer because we do see that a lot of families want that extra help and need that extra help, and they choose to use NCSA services to get a little bit more hands-on assistance within the recruiting process. But at the end of the day, our main goal is that your family knows what steps to be taking with or without NCSA services. That way you have a game plan to know that these are the steps you're going to take to get recruited, really either way. So great question and great stuff, Phil, on your end. We'll kind of move into the commitment side of things, and we have some really good commitments here today. We have one that's my favorite sport that I've never played. This is really on my docket, and we're starting off with it. It's Alexis, who's headed to Murray State. I think Phil said that he looked her up. She's a Canadian athlete. She's a javelin thrower. This is my dream. I've played almost every sport in the world. I've never thrown a javelin before. Who can get me set up with a javelin? I'm all in to go out and throw a javelin as far as I can and absolutely destroy my UCL. So congrats to you, Alexis. We'll focus on you. Headed to Murray State. Congrats on all your success. Heading on to our second one, Phil. Go ahead, Phil.
Perfect. Very good action photo there coming from that javelin. But very excited for Charlotte as well, going over to the Naval Academy. Obviously, she's doing crew, and what a picture there. Charlotte looks like she's ready to very much cross that finish line with a head full of steam. And frankly, I'm not one to do well with water, but it looks like Charlotte very much is really taken to it. And huge congratulations, and I'll extend an early thank you for her service as she looks to continue her success at the next level in the Naval Academy.
Awesome. And our last commitment here for this week is Ty Knowles. He's headed to the University of Pittsburgh, Greensburg, basketball player. Ty, congrats on all your success and best of luck to you at University of Pittsburgh, Greenburg. I love the Berg and Berg doubled up there. So congrats to you, Ty, and congrats to all of our commitments. If you're a family out there watching this and you have a student athlete who's committed, let us know so we can shout you guys out on the upcoming Facebook or NCSA lives. Give you guys the props you deserve. Next week, I'll be back again, I believe, with either Danny Koenig or David Kamisik. I'm on a roll here, just crushing it. We'll be talking about the latest NCAA recruiting updates, of which there are some big ones coming down the pipe. So a little bit of a teaser, but some big potential updates coming up in the next couple months. Nothing set in stone yet, but it's going to be very interesting to see what comes down moving forward from here. Phil, anything?
Well, I certainly look forward to hearing some of those updates, but it's going to be bittersweet. I feel like we were on a roll a little bit, and I'll still be locked in watching with a lot of the amazing Facebook viewers, but I won't be there with you, but it's very, very excited to hear some of those huge potential updates coming into next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for doing this again with me, Phil, and you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week.